Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone. I am so excited to introduce Mark to you. As you will hear, Mark and I met many years ago, but I judged him and I did not bother to get to know him. Years later, we ran into each other in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, and I immediately felt an intense connection with him. How weird is that? I always loved Mark's sense of peace and his calm aura, but I never knew the paths he walked in order to develop this sense of spirituality. He uses words, concepts and practices that I have never heard of in my life, and I doubt if I will ever be willing to investigate them for a deeper spiritual sense in my own life. I was truly in awe about his commitment and loved every second of our chat. I hope you do too. Here we go. Hey Mark, how are you doing?
I'm alright, Freddie. Nice to see you. Nice to be with you.
It's amazing. We haven't seen each other. You said it's years, but it can't be that long. Far too long ago. It is really awesome to see you. I think of you so often. It's just lovely to be here. I've never seen your space. And it's such a nice space. It's so artistic. It's so you.
Thank you. It's nice to have you here and share this with you.
You've been here a long time.
It's 14 years.
Oh my God. Wow. And I've known you for how long? That's debatable.
Yeah. 18 years?
Yeah. Because I got to know you through a mutual friend. And I didn't like you. Not because I didn't like you, because I didn't give you a chance. I judged you right from the start as I don't like you. And I'm so sorry I did that, because knowing you, I missed out on so much in my life. But I was just judgmental. I didn't allow people the opportunity to... I didn't allow myself the opportunity to experience people.
You know, I was actually thinking of that earlier on. Can you believe it? I remember you saying that you had difficulty because you thought I was weird.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, what does that mean? And now that you just said that, I would say, you know how we label ourselves, like you said that you're judgmental. Maybe we can just step and say, well, you judged. It doesn't mean that you're judgmental. There's a difference.
I like that. Yeah.
And I guess I just presented something that you were unfamiliar to.
Yeah.
So
You probably presented something to me that I wasn't ready to see myself.
yeah.
And which now, looking back, I'm very grateful that I've discovered. Because it presented me with an opportunity to get to know you better and to get to love you dearly. I mean, we don't see each other a lot, but, you know, I often send a message and say, I think of you, you know, how are you doing? That type of thing.
And also, I mean, we've covered some ground together in our own journey, in our own spiritual journey, in our own journey of can-do recovery. Yeah. I mean, yes, and especially like those early days, and I'd say about a year into the early days when my recovery took a turn and I started seeing deeper layers of it, and I think we had many things in common in that way. Yeah, so I mean, for me, you also, it's very much that you are, I'd say, like a spiritual brother.
Yeah, I feel that as well.
That's because there's a sense of being you my peer.
Yeah.
And then also witnessing your leaving corporate world and going on your own, which is also what I did.
Yeah.
And for me, that's...
And very much at the same time without knowing it.
Exactly. And so there's almost like a maturing that happened on our parallel paths, because we came into recovery at the same time.
Very much the same time, yeah.
And I find that interesting because I watch it in other other peers as well, and how there is a maturing. Also, as an astrologer, I'm looking at time frames, and we certainly covered the 7-year corner.
Oh, cool.
We crossed the 7-year. We turned the 7-year corner.
Okay. So how have you been? How's life treating you? How are you treating life?
Well, I can honestly say in the last 2 years, I have been thriving. And what I'm calling thriving is that I'm grounded, that I'm able to take care of myself financially, I'm eating well, I've got a roof over my head, and I'm growing artistically. And I feel it's the most comfortable I've felt in my skin, I would say, ever.
I can say the same.
And it's like, how did we get here,
Yeah.
you know?
It's really, really weird. I sometimes just want to say it's age, but I don't think it's that. I think both of us have done a lot of work on ourselves over the past few years. It flows from that. You originally from KZN, the alternate town.
Yeah, I was born in Pietermaritzburg.
Are your parents still alive? Are they still there? Where are they?
Now, my dad died in 2001. My mum still lives there, my brother lives there, and my sister lives here in Cape Town.
Okay. And are you close to them? Do you see each other?
Very seldom. We're not particularly close. There's no animosity. And I'd say there's an intimacy. We can be very honest with each other and open with each other, but we just, I guess, are very different people and are very independent people.
Yeah. You've got no need to spend that closeness. You find that closeness in other people and other things.
Yes.
You don't need it in them. Yeah.
Yes, and my family upbringing wasn't necessarily a happy place and a happy space. I think I would have preferred a more cuddly family. You know, like where you've got siblings, like a puddle of puppies, you know, and like, but that wasn't the case. It was more detached and I guess more adults. Maybe that comes from dysfunctionality. My father was an alcoholic, and there was violence. There was always this like brooding violence. So they kind of made a lot of space between things, I suppose.
That changes dynamics forever.
Yeah.
Have you visited adult children of alcoholics yet?
No, I think I need to play that place a visit.
It is so freaky that virtually every conversation I have ends up there.
Really?
Yes. And sorry for the listeners, but I say it every bloody time we talk, is I hear such good things about it. People who've done the steps and the journeys in other fellowships suddenly end there.
Yeah.
And apparently it rips a few layers of the onion off suddenly. Okay. One friend said to me, I feel a vulnerability that I've never felt. I feel a sensitivity. I feel that young boy whom I've never nurtured. He's with me suddenly.
Have you gone?
No, because I don't have an alcoholic parent. But
okay.
my journey at the moment is taking me to Codependence Anonymous.
Yeah, okay.
Which I've been wanting to do for a very, very long time. And suddenly it's just happening. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And did you grow up in a religious family, a spiritual family?
No religion at all. I went to Sunday school twice. My mom, she was a Sunday school teacher, and then she looked towards the church for assistance and support in dealing with her alcoholic husband, because her family actually rejected her for marrying my father.
Okay.
Soon after they were married. So she was looking at the church for support, and she never got it.
Oh.
So she felt that the church, Christian church obviously, was fundamentally hypocritical. So she let it go. And then she has increasingly become atheist, and very strongly so. And that has had a bit of conflict for me, because for me, in many ways, I feel very grateful that I wasn't brought up with any specific thing.
Organized religion, enforced dogma type of thing.
Yes, and nothing was forced. Okay. I mean, besides the indoctrination we had at school, and I would say it was indoctrination.
You use that word without thinking about it, and I agree with you. It was exactly that.
Yeah, it was assumed that this is the way it is. I mean, okay, I also need to step back. I don't really have issues around religions.
Yeah.
For me, it's absolutely fine. I think there's some good things about them in terms of community and development of our own spirituality. And there I do have a distinction between spirituality and religion.
Yeah.
religion being far more culturally loaded, but then it's also quite difficult to separate them out, because we are also, I can't pretend that I haven't been brought up within the Western tradition, which is primarily Christian, Judeo-Christian. But I also feel that in me, there was something before, but something that came through all of that, which I would say loosely is a kind of paganism.
Okay.
Which in some way has come out through my being an astrologer. Yeah, I would say there's two schools. There's two ways of seeing things. There's a Western Christian way, and there's a more pagan way, and I feel that I embrace both of them. The Christian, I want to say in an atheist way.
Okay.
Which I know is a total contradiction, but
well, it's interesting because I had a chat with a guy the other day who referred to himself as a spiritual atheist.
Yes, I can go with that.
Yeah.
I can go with that. So the reason why that comes up is that I've had an enormous issue around this notion of a personal deity. That's okay. I mean, we have this kind of picture of an old man with a beard that sits in a cloud. I've also realized, well, maybe real Christians don't think of God, or maybe it's the non-Christians who think of it like that. I mean, maybe the non-Christians are the stupid ones who can't lack imagination to have such a broad imagination in order to see things in a more abstract way. I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to have a parent projection. I want to have a dad in the sky. I want to have a mom in the sky that can look after me and make everything better.
Yeah.
But part of my journey is to realize, well, that isn't the case, and that mom and dad I need to develop for myself.
So tell me about your journey from atheist type of mother to where you are now.
So there was always, I would say, like a questioning, I guess. I could never describe myself as an atheist. So, I suppose as an agnostic. And, they're just words.
Yeah.
And then I'd say in my late 20s, my Saturn return, I really woke up to there is spirituality, and what is that? And then I got into a lot of New Age stuff. I started meditating then.
So late 20s?
Late 20s.
Did you get introduced to meditation by friends?
Yeah, and it was when I'd moved to Durban. I was married. I just got married to a woman. So that was also, mine was also really, it wasn't clear for me. It was and it wasn't. It was just a nest of a whole lot of things I didn't want to look at.
Okay.
But what was interesting is when I woke up, and I'd say I woke up spiritually when I was 28, my sexuality also started going crazy, like a whole lot of stuff. I started acting out in, I want to say unconscious ways, but
it sounds like your sexuality woke up with your spirituality.
Totally.
So the one said, okay, kind of, if we're going to wake up, let's wake up as a wholeness, as a holistic way.
Yeah. Which was also difficult to reconcile, because the ideas that I had around spirituality, which was very transcendent, which is a Western model, but even Buddhist models are quite transcendent. It's like kind of moving away from the body, and the body being dirty or bad, and of course sex being dirty and bad. And I certainly grew up with sex being dirty and bad.
Absolutely.
Like hugely.
My first introduction to a sexual conversation was around castrating somebody because he impregnated somebody else.
Oh my God. That's a solution.
So the first open conversation in the family was, if I catch that boy, I castrate him.
Yeah. Yeah, for me it was more, my mom was like the absolute ultimate virgin, and sex doesn't happen, and sex doesn't actually exist. So it's like total denial, and it just doesn't exist. And my father, who was very lewd, and he had a dirty attitude towards sex. So that's quite a ripping
conflicting tension. Absolutely. How were you as a teenager? Were you kind of dark and broody? Were you bright and breezy? Were you compliant?
Well, because of the alcoholic situation in the home, I never had friends. I never had friends at home.
So you're too ashamed to bring them into your space.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily shame. It was something that just didn't happen. It wasn't encouraged. So I had a very weird social thing, and my growing up, because I'm the eldest, I mean, there's 5.5 years, I spent a lot of time by myself.
Yeah. So.
Which was okay. I didn't really mind. But it means I think I didn't have those early social development things.
Okay.
Those aren't really in place. I don't know if you can catch them up.
Mm.
Can you?
I think we're trying our utmost. We're trying to grow up. We're trying to learn those skills that we just didn't acquire when somebody like Piaget would say we should have. And Rogers, it's kind of, at that stage you should have acquired the following, and we just didn't.
And what I'm learning, I've been doing a lot of listening to podcasts and stuff, and what I'm learning is that early development, so our early morality, we learn morally through play. So it's a physical thing. It's not through words. It's not an intellectual thing. I've been really influenced by evolutionary biology of late.
Okay.
I feel I was brought up in a more mental way.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can actually learn those things later on in life.
Yeah.
There's a big gap.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And I get that. I mean, that therefore leads to a whole lot of intimacy issues and physical, how I am physically around other people in a body, around other bodies. It's difficult.
You mentioned earlier that you wished your family was more like puppies.
There we go.
And I grew up in a family also where for a very long time we were never touched and hugged. We were never told that we were loved.
Yeah.
I made a conscious decision to break that mold and to start hugging my family members when I see them, and to tell them I love them.
Yeah.
The first time my mother told me she loved me in my late 20s, I called my brother and asked whether she's got cancer.
Oh God.
Whether she, and she wasn't a cold woman.
Yeah.
It was just that love was expressed differently, and for them that was completely okay. I just had a different need. I wanted to be touched and told that I'm okay, and told that I'm being loved, and told that I'm being cared for.
Yeah. But touch is really important, you know, and all those studies where babies aren't touched, they die.
Yeah.
Or if they don't die, there's some like really fundamental psychological disorder that takes place.
One of my favorite psychological studies was that one with was it rhesus monkeys, where they kept the baby hungry for a while and then introduced him to two mannequin mothers.
Yeah.
One was covered in wire and the other one was covered in fur. The one with the wire had a banana and the one covered in fur had nothing. And the hungry monkey was released and they went for the fur.
Now I want to cry.
They went for the touch, not for the food.
Yeah, so that's how fundamental it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did go to university, and that was interesting because politically that was a huge thing for me. I had been brought up in a very, I'd say like verging on Nazi, highly racist background, and then thrown into liberal university and coming up against or being introduced to Marxism and all this stuff, and not really having it presented in a scholarly way. It was more in a social way. Like I had very left-wing peers and very left-wing lecturers, so I was kind of, I would say, also indoctrinated.
Yeah. And
that I broke through last year.
Oh wow!
I encountered a very outspoken professor. He's gone viral on YouTube. Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
And he stands for freedom of speech, and he also stands for the Western tradition and the Western university, which is to present the spectrum of philosophy, of worldviews, political views, and then as a scholar you expose all of that, and then you choose or you develop your own. And that certainly wasn't my experience. My experience was that there is only the left way of seeing, there is only the Marxist way of seeing, And it was only until last year that I realized, well, there are other ways of seeing, and it's, if you're not Marxist, it doesn't mean that you're a Nazi.
Yeah.
There's things in between.
So that must have been a complete culture shock for you, coming from a Christian national education system to suddenly being exposed to all of this stuff as well.
Totally.
What did you study?
I did fine art.
Fine arts, okay.
Which is more progressive, more open.
Yeah.
What did you study?
I studied, I went to varsity to become a psychologist. I studied BA psychology and sociology.
Okay.
But I hated the psychology department. I couldn't relate to them at all. So your varsity life, was there a sense of spiritual development while you were discovering all this other political being, the growing in art? Because you're an artist. Do you call yourself an artist?
Yeah. So, I mean, art had always been there. And it was, what was interesting was I did the other subjects I did. So I mean, your fine art course is very much set. You don't have you within it. You're going to choose. Are you going to do sculpture? You're going to do this, whatever. Yeah. But I still needed to do other BA subjects. So there's history of art, and I mean a huge part of art and certainly art history is the spiritual. You know, artists have always been engaged with portraying or being or representing spiritual states.
Absolutely.
And in some cultures, the shaman is also the artist. So the artist is also kind of like the kind of priest shaman person.
Yeah.
And then I also did philosophy.
Okay.
So philosophy has always been there. And philosophy is also a way into spiritual, metaphysical realms.
Yeah. And
then I also did religious studies, which I really wasn't focused in that course. And then I did classical civilization, which, I mean, the Greeks and the Romans, that certainly anchored a kind of paganism.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is that your spiritual growth was part of your growth journey. It was kind of embedded.
Yeah, it's always been there.
In it. Okay.
Always been there. So that, I mean, when I was at varsity, there was that phase of happy clappers. I don't know if you had it. I think it was an 80s thing. So there was that lurking around. Look, I mean, I was exploding when I went to varsity because I had my new freedom. And I mean, the first thing that I was able to the way I would express myself was with my appearance. So I mean, and it was the early 80s, and it was just crazy. I mean, I caused car accidents with the way I looked, and it was wild. It was really wild. And so then sharing the same space with like happy clappers, and I'm going wild. So it was kind of, okay, Christianity is bad. I think I worked through a whole lot of that stuff, and then I encountered the New Age stuff, as I said, in my late 20s, which also was, I think the New Age is very denigrating towards religions, and I don't know if that's really fair. And I was exposed to a lot of like quite far out New Age things,
okay,
like channeled entities, alien stuff, human potential stuff.
And did you go on that ride? Did you, as you got introduced to them?
I was very immersed in it.
Okay.
I was very, very immersed in it. And I feel very different. For me, a lot of that is very much wishful thinking. Like, oh, I'm creating my own reality, and I can change it just by what I'm thinking, which life has shown me isn't the case. And there's more to life than what I'm thinking. Zen has certainly shown me that I can actually put down the thinking. There's something far bigger or more or whatever before thinking. Yeah. It was fluffy. It was very kind of flaky, like what you were saying about psychology. It was also...
Okay.
I mean, at the same time, I also studied astrology. I did a 2-year astrology course. So that I was taking very seriously. And there's something very pragmatic about astrology, because you can see what's going on. It's the movement of the planets, and it's the movement of seasons. So that's very grounded. Yeah, I mean, that then I came across the Flower of Life stuff, all the Pleiadian stuff. I mean, it's like far out shit.
Oh, wow.
Like way out
Yeah.
shit. And it could also still be all true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I won't be surprised if it is true. But I got a very clear message in my mid-30s towards, or maybe even later, I need to be more grounded.
Okay.
It was those were mechanisms to unground myself, and of course that also fed into a whole lot of drug addiction. So coming into recovery, which only happened in my mid-40s, I had to drop a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was ungrounding me.
You mentioned meditation earlier. You also teach meditation, or you did at some stage?
No, I've just been part of groups.
Okay.
So that first introduction to meditation was through Lazarus, which is a channeled entity.
Okay.
And Lazarus is pretty fucking amazing. It's really incredible. And it would also, and the standard format would be like a 2-hour thing, and you'd have like an hour or 45 minutes introduction to a specific topic. There would be a meditation, and then and they would still cassette tapes. The fourth side
The good old days.
a practical application of whatever it was, like how you can actually apply this in your life. And it's very much about, well, you do most of your work in meditation. So I understood meditation as the space that you can go into, which is you working on the mental plane, not astral plane. I mean, I got into all that kind of stuff, like you got all these different planes and all the different chakras and all this shit. And as I say, yes, I mean, I think it is true. I think it's there, but I need to be here in a physical space. So, but I'm sidetracked. So in terms of meditation became a lot of thinking and a lot of like doing in mental space. And that changed when I encountered a whole lot of Tibetan stuff and a whole lot of Buddhist stuff, and then I went to Shambhala, where it was, meditation is actually finding a space where you can look at thoughts, and you can also be in a space where you don't engage in with thinking. It's not that thinking stops. Thinking never stops. But there's space around thinking, there's space around thoughts, and that was like, wow. Wow, so it just brought a whole lot more space into my life, that there's before thinking.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier drug use. Obviously, I know there was that, because that's how we met. That's in recovery, that's how we connected through recovery. But did you take drugs in a way to connect spiritually? Did you connect it with spirituality in any way?
Yes, well, I had a very powerful experience. I was doing a course called psychophonetics, so that was based on Steiner, and that's a healing modality of, it's kind of like magical theater, where you go into a whole lot of emotional wounds, psychological wounds, and then you act it out.
Okay.
And it's very strong. So I was doing that course. So I was quite processed and processing, and then I started doing psychedelics in my early 30s. They seemed very spiritual to me. They seemed to open up spiritual spaces. And for me, it was also like a shamanic path. And then I did an ayahuasca, which was extremely powerful.
What is that?
That's the South American, well, it's DMT. So that's the neurochemical that gets released when you die. It's like the death experience.
Oh my God.
And it was a very powerful experience. And it was beautifully held by a 13th generation Peruvian shaman. So, I mean, it was like, we get the best. And it was very beautiful. It was well held. He was such a master at what he was doing. And I had an experience there which I call one of the most powerful experiences of my life, and it's difficult to put it into words because it's psychedelic space and it's just like non-verbal. And basically I found myself in a space where I was nothing, and I knew that to be like the essential self, and it was home, and it was extremely plain. It was like water. It wasn't like hysterical or fireworks. It was dead fucking plain.
Okay.
And I got a very distinct message that was home, and it felt absolutely fine. And whatever I identify with prevents me from being there.
It sounds as if the picture I'm getting in my head is of a tree in winter stripped of all its leaves. Of all you see is the essence of what there is, without the noise, without the razzmatazz and the hangings on all those things, just plain. But that's essence.
Well, it was
or
more...
Not.
The essence is a bit of an issue because that can bring up a whole lot of other things. It was more an emptiness.
Okay.
And an emptiness that wasn't scary. I like the analogy of water, where water is just very plain and it really satisfies a thirst.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that will satisfy. So that emptiness, which I also now experience in meditation, is that satisfies that spiritual, and I want to say it's a spiritual thirst. So 3 months after the ayahuasca, I did the Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent retreat.
Oh my God. Okay.
So you're meditating from, and it is hardcore. Ayahuasca is hardcore as well, because you go, it's like you sit in hell and you burn. You burn in hell and you're burning off a whole lot of shit.
Oh my God.
It's not like it's not a party drug.
It's not an ecstasy trip.
It's not an ecstasy trip. And so I did ayahuasca, I did Vipassana. So you're meditating from 4 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. And it's really hard. And it's also like an initiation in fire. You like burn up. And I had a very similar experience as I did on ayahuasca. So that for me said, okay, that state, and I'm aware that it's not something that I'm chasing. It's not something that can be attained, because in a sense it is already. It's not something to chase after. Is achievable through meditation. So at the same time, I was exposed to In-School Theory by Ken Wilber, and he is a huge advocate of meditation. And he talks about various layers and levels of consciousness and consciousness development. Yeah. So meditation change. So Vipassana is a Buddhist lineage. So it's kind of going as like the very pure Buddhist technique from Buddha. The meditation, it anchored me in a very physical experience. So did the ayahuasca actually. Of being truthful in my body.
Yeah.
Not going into dilly, fantastical, imaginative realms. It's very pragmatic, visceral. And then I was able to, and I had to get honest that a lot of that psychedelic stuff was sheer escapism and was part of my addiction, that I didn't want to be here. Which continued. I had done that when I was 42, but that continued and got progressively worse until my mid-40s. The desire to escape. So, behind all of this was a deep issue with being physical, a deep issue of being a human, a deep issue with being in a body, and being suicidal from the age of 9. I didn't fucking want to be here. It went through stages of being highly dramatic, like drama, poor me. Yeah. But I just didn't want to fucking be here. Yeah. I didn't know how to navigate this being human. It was so fucking confusing. And it was only until I got into recovery, put the fucking drugs down, all that stuff to escape. Yeah. Which included not eating, not sleeping, not having money, being poor a lot of the time. Having crazy ideas, and it was only when I got into recovery and started doing very basic things like sleeping and eating properly and taking care of my health that I think my spirituality could awaken. Yeah. Before that, it was scrabbling around in the dark. I'm not saying that I'm in the light now. I know. It's a case of I know I don't know. Well, I know that there's a whole lot of stuff that I don't. Yeah. There was always that thing, I've got to pretend that I know all this shit. I don't fucking know. I'm okay with not knowing. Yeah. It's okay not to know. It's actually great not to know.
So it sounds as if Oh, wow. Okay,
It's a lot.
let me try and explain to you what I think I heard over the past few minutes is your trying to escape brought you back to you. And it was only once you could take the falseness that drugs created, that you could see the true you and actually connect with that whole path, that everything you've learned. Once you put the drugs down, you could connect with that actually and start pulling it into a whole.
I don't. That lays a lot at the drugs door. It
As a bad.
Yeah, it lays a lot at the door of addiction, which I don't necessarily go with.
Okay.
I think this is very much the human condition, and I think it's very much being born into the human condition that a whole lot of things happen. And yes, I am an addict and I've got an addictive personality. That's absolutely.
I'm waving my arms and shaking my head and identifying.
And what that really means is that I've got all these mechanisms in place that can pull me out of being truthful and being honest and about being in a body.
Okay.
That's what addiction very much is about for me. Escape.
Okay.
Spirituality isn't about escape. And I think for a while I thought spirituality was. It was about transcending this, getting away from this, which many religious paths are. Another thing, just, what we said about addiction was that also that inauthenticity and all of that. I came across Jung has always been part of my story as well.
And Jung has always been part of recovery.
Absolutely. And I mean, he is just amazing. And for me,
I never got Jung as a student. I never, ever got Jung.
Well, I don't think it gets taught. I think because he's so complex. And I think also Jung will say, how much responsibility are you really willing to take? Because he's basically lays it all at our feet and says you're responsible for it all. There is no room for victimhood.
Yeah.
And
victimhood used to be my savior. It's all their fault.
And as an addict, and as somebody who didn't want to be truthful and honest, I knew how to be the victim.
Oh my God.
Because victims get away with murder, and victims get other people to do things for them.
Yeah. Which is a complete way of manipulating. Living manipulatively.
Total manipulation.
For me, it's active addiction. Fully.
Totally.
Oh wow. So as you sit here today, you identify. How do you define yourself?
Oh, it's hard. Because you've mentioned the you, like, okay, so it's been this thing of finding you. Well, what is you? I mean, if my big awakenings were, well, the you is emptiness, well, then what am I? Empty. Nothing. And that comes as relief. So what is this thing that I call you? Myself, I. It's all that. I mean, okay, Jungian stuff, it's the big self, all that stuff. And words
just don't do it for you.
No.
Okay.
No.
In what way do you practice your spirituality today? Or in which way do you live it?
Yeah, how does one live it? I mean, there's certain practices, and those practices can be as plain as making my bed, eating properly, having enough sleep, brushing my teeth, to meditating, to doing yoga. Yoga's also been very much part of my practice. So it's a relationship with my body. It's, Zen is also, it's like before thinking mind. But then it's also, how am I treating myself, but how am I treating other people? Am I coming from my head, or am I coming from my all self?
Yeah.
Am I being honest? I suddenly feel like crying now.
Fabulous.
I mean, at the end of the day, Fred, isn't it just all about being honest? And you are another me. So when I look at you, I'm seeing me, and how am I treating you as how I'm treating me? And
the picture I have of you in my head is such an amazingly connected individual that animal connection was just part of what I saw in my head.
Oh, yeah, no, I do love cats. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had many cats in my life, and I get cats. I mean, I'm not a dog person.
Is it?
I mean, dogs are gorgeous. All animals are gorgeous. I love animals.
You're vegetarian.
Cats,
You're vegan. Vegetarian.
No, not even. No, a lot of people assume I am.
And I think we've had this conversation actually a few times already.
No, and I'm eating more meat than I have in my entire life.
Bad you.
I mean, okay, try and do it as ethically as possible,
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, my body actually wants meat. But also, being in recovery, I think the most important thing that an addict can do, I believe, is re-establish a relationship with the body.
Absolutely.
Because as addicts, we are not in our bodies, and we force our bodies to do things that are really not good, like smoking fucking cigarettes. I mean, hello. The body does not want to breathe in smoke. It's very plain, and we breathe it in, and then we stand around and we pose like this is the coolest. It's we are the coolest. I mean, what the fuck? How dishonest can you get?
Because you worked the 12-step program on smoking, didn't you? Yeah. I think I learned more about the application of 12 steps when I quit smoking than I did when I quit drugs and alcohol.
Exactly.
It was
because you've really got to use it.
It was a complete different level of connection and asking for help and powerlessness. I mean, every 20 bloody minutes you feel like a cigarette. While drugs, kind of every, I don't know, but it was far harder. I loved it. I loved taking myself on that journey.
Well done for doing it. I mean, isn't that
such a release? Well done self.
A release of slavery. It is
totally
such slavery there.
Listen, Mark, last question. Let's wrap it up. I think.
I don't know if this makes any sense, does
it? It's perfect.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Seems like a big jumble.
No, I'm loving it. I truly am. Listen, there's one question I always ask, and I don't know why, because I started doing it and it feels right. And it's going to be interesting to hear your answer. Are you happy?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what contributes to that happiness, as opposed to you being suicidal?
It's doing all those very ordinary things. It's doing the very ordinary things.
Being present, being here.
Making my bed, eating, getting sleep. I've got into a new thing of watching a lot of YouTube, and then I want to start doing that when I get into bed, and then I don't sleep.
Yeah.
So it's like getting enough sleep and waking up in the morning. Those things, just having that in place, doing those basic things, then it creates a good foundation, it creates a good structure for happiness just to be. I mean, I've learned the difference between joy, ecstasy, and happiness. Happiness resonates with that water analogy. It's plain.
Yeah.
And I also feel that it's a basic requirement. Because if I'm not happy, then there's this niggling thing, and it's just, life is unbearable.
Yeah.
So it's a balance point between a whole lot of things.
Because as you say, if we're not happy, is it worth it?
It's not.
Exactly.
It's not. I can't.
Yeah.
But then, I don't think there's a formula to it. Years ago, I understood and I also understand it from an astrological point of view. Happiness corresponds with needs being met.
Yeah.
And joy corresponds to our desires being met.
Okay.
So desires, in some sense, can be forfeited. They can't really, but they can be forfeited. Whereas needs cannot be forfeited. They have to be met, and that's Maslow. And then there is also the hierarchy of needs. So the moment the bottom one is, then we develop.
I love Maslow. I like that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Also, what I've learned from Maslow is that the spiritual need actually is the top one. So basic things like food, clothing, that has to be done first. And I think I always had it the other way around. I was always chasing spirituality before my belly was full. You can't meditate. You can't. I don't believe you can even approach your spirituality until that's. And that also makes sense why we go into, or maybe we develop our spirituality as we get older because we're more sorted, you know.
I really like what you said there. It's as if you had it the other way around.
I had it the other way around.
What I found interesting as well is I did my formal education in the early 80s. And then I did another round of studies a few years ago. And suddenly Maslow had a 6th level.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, okay. And it was interesting that the level that my work was on the 6th level.
Okay. What is the 6th level?
The giving.
Okay. Yeah, giving back.
Yeah. But Mark, we need to do this again. There's some stuff that I want to go deeper into.
Yeah, so, no, this has been very lovely.
Yeah. A lot of people when we off air are saying, God, we went to places where I haven't been for a very long time, to things that I haven't thought about for a very long time. And afterwards I speak to them again and say, since our chat, I've made some changes again in my life.
Yeah.
But awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I can't wait to get this live.
Yeah, and I'm terrified because I don't want to hear it. I can't stand my voice. I hate it. When I hear my voice, I want to die.
There are some people who are refusing to talk to me because of that.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'll ever listen to it.
I'll force you. I'll tie you to a bed. Thank you, Mark. Look after yourself.
Thank you, Fred.
Wow, that was really one of the most intense conversations of this podcast series so far. I have so much respect for Mark and his utter commitment to find the path that works for him. I love his inclusiveness on his journey, as well as his non-judgment of whatever comes along his path. I am so lucky that I received an original Mark Rautenbach from Mark as a parting gift, and have decided to use a non-professional picture taken by myself with my cell phone as a picture for this podcast episode on my website. It says enough. Mark's way of reminding me that I am enough. I like to think that it is a message to all of us. Not only are we all enough, but it helps to truly embrace the concept of enough in the way we live our lives. You can learn more about Mark's artistic endeavors on his website markrautenbach.com/The Educator's New Clothes, and on his YouTube channel www.youtube.com/user/MarkSplendidTV. If you have any feedback or remarks, please feel free to pop me an email or connect on social media. It will be great to hear from you. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddy.org.za, or find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/freddy.org.za, or on Twitter at @RensburgFreddy. Remember that Freddy is always spelled with an IE at the end. Be safe. Bye.